My name is Brooke, and at 29 years old, I never imagined I'd be standing in the doorway of my childhood bedroom, staring at absolutely nothing. The room that held 26 years of memories was completely empty. After 3 years of working as a nurse in disaster zones around the world, I'd come home hoping for a warm family reunion. Instead, I discovered something that would change everything. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever felt betrayed by those closest to you, please subscribe to hear how I found my peace through the most unexpected journey. The last 3 years of my life had been dedicated to helping others heal. When I left home at 26, I joined Doctors Without Borders, fulfilling a dream I'd carried since nursing school. My assignments took me to places where hope seemed impossible to find. Haiti after earthquakes, Syria during conflicts, remote villages in Bangladesh during cholera outbreaks. Each place left its mark on my soul, teaching me about human resilience and the power of compassion. Throughout those 3 years, no matter how exhausted I was, no matter how emotionally drained from witnessing suffering, I never forgot about my family back in Denver. Every single month, without fail, I sent home $1,500. Sometimes that meant I ate rice and beans for weeks. Sometimes it meant sleeping in the hospital break room instead of renting a proper apartment. But family came first always. My mother Jessica was 52 years old, and life hadn't been kind to her since my father passed away 5 years ago. The insurance money should have been enough, but somehow there were always bills, always emergencies, always something. She'd call me crying about the mortgage, about repairs, about how hard it was raising my younger siblings alone. How could I not help my brother? Tyler was 24, a college dropout, who insisted he was building his career as a social media influencer. He had big dreams and bigger expenses. Ring lights, cameras, editing, software promotional campaigns. Mum said supporting his dream was an investment in his future. My sister Madison, 22, was attending community college studying business administration. She needed textbooks, supplies, transportation money. I sent it all gladly. My latest assignment in Haiti had been the hardest yet. For 6 months, I worked 18-hour days in a makeshift hospital treating earthquake victims. Children with crushed limbs, elderly people who'd lost everything, families torn apart by tragedy. The emotional toll was overwhelming. I'd held dying children in my arms, comforted mothers who'd lost everything, worked until my hands shook from exhaustion. When December came, something inside me broke. I needed to see my family. I needed to remember why I was doing all this. I needed to feel loved and appreciated, to share stories of the lives I'd saved, to be held and told I was making them proud. I decided to surprise them for Christmas, the 4th one I'd missed since leaving. The journey home took 36 hours. From Port-au-Prince to Miami to Denver, each flight bringing me closer to what I thought would be healing. Despite my exhaustion, despite having barely $2,000 in my personal savings after sending everything else home, I stopped at the mall. Mum deserved that designer purse she'd mentioned wanting 2 years ago. Tyler needed the latest gaming console for his streaming. Madison would love the sterling silver jewelry set I'd seen her admiring online. The taxi ride from the airport to our family home in Lakewood should have been 20 minutes. I asked the driver to take the long way, wanting to see the neighborhood Christmas lights, to feel the magic of coming home. The cold Denver air was such a contrast to Haiti's humidity. I could see my breath fogging the window as we turned onto our street. That's when I noticed the first strange thing. Our modest ranch house, the one Mum constantly complained about needing repairs for, had new siding. The roof that supposedly leaked, forcing me to send an emergency $3,000 last spring, looked professionally renovated. There were 2 cars in the driveway I didn't recognize. A nearly new BMW and a modified Honda Civic with expensive aftermarket parts. My heart started racing, but not with excitement anymore. I paid the taxi driver and stood on the sidewalk, my single suitcase beside me, gifts and shopping bags weighing down my arms. Maybe Mom had visitors. Maybe she'd finally made some friends after years of isolation. Maybe Tyler had actually succeeded with his influencer career and bought himself a car. I still had my key. Dad had given it to me when I turned 16, making me promise to always consider this my home. The metal was warm from being clutched in my palm during the entire flight. I turned it slowly, quietly, not wanting to ruin the surprise. The house smelled different. Not like Mom's lavender candles or her famous pot roast. It smelled like expensive cologne and new electronics. The living room had been completely remodeled. The old comfortable couch where Dad used to read me stories was gone, replaced by modern furniture I recognized from influencer house tours Tyler watched obsessively. Voices drifted from upstairs. Lots of voices. Laughter, but not the warm kind that fills a home with joy. This laughter had an edge to it, sharp and mocking. I set down my bags carefully by the door and climbed the stairs, each creak of the old wood making me wince. The voices were coming from my room. My door was open just enough to see inside, and what I saw changed everything I thought I knew about my family. The scene before me felt like stepping into an alternate reality where cruelty was entertainment. My mother stood in the center of my childhood bedroom, holding my high school yearbook above her head like a trophy. Tyler had his phone mounted on a professional tripod, the ring light illuminating everyone in that artificial way that makes people look like dolls. Madison was digging through a box of my clothes, the ones I'd carefully stored before leaving for my first assignment. But it wasn't just them. There were 3 strangers, young people about Tyler's age, all holding their phones recording from different angles. "Look at this picture," Mum laughed, pointing at my senior photo. She really thought those braces made her look cute. And that haircut, oh my goodness, what was she thinking? Tyler zoomed in on the yearbook page. "Chat is loving this," he announced. "We're at 50,000 viewers right now. Someone just said this is better than any reality show." I shifted slightly to see his phone screen. The live stream title made my stomach drop, rating my loser sister's cringe belongings before we trashed them. The comment section was scrolling so fast I could barely read it, but I caught glimpses. Some people were encouraging them, sending laughing emojis and fire symbols. Others were asking if this was real, if they really were going through someone's personal items without permission. Madison pulled out my favorite sweater, the one Dad bought me for my last birthday before he died. It was burgundy cashmere, way too expensive for our budget, but he'd insisted. She held it up to herself, striking poses. "This is actually decent. Think anyone would buy it if we said it was vintage. Everything's for sale," Tyler said, panning his camera across my room. "We're turning her abandoned junk into content and cash. She left 3 years ago, never visits, thinks she's too good for us now that she's saving the world or whatever." My legs felt weak. I pressed my back against the hallway wall, trying to process what I was hearing. Abandoned, I'd begged them to visit me, offered to pay for their flights multiple times. They always had excuses. One of the strangers, a girl with platinum blonde hair and facial piercings, picked up a small brown teddy bear from my bed. My chest tightened. That bear, Mr. Buttons, was the last gift my father ever gave me. He'd won it at the state fair 2 weeks before his heart attack, joking that I was never too old for stuffed animals. "This is definitely trash," she said, tossing Mr. Buttons into a large garbage bag. "No one's buying some raggedy bear." Mum didn't even flinch. Instead, she opened my desk drawer and pulled out a stack of letters tied with ribbon. My hands flew to my mouth to stifle a gasp. Those were letters from patients I'd treated, people who'd taken the time to write and thanked me for caring for them or their loved ones. Some were from children who drew pictures, others from elderly people whose handwriting shook but whose gratitude was steady. "Oh, these are rich," Mum said, untying the ribbon. "Love letters. Let's see what kind of romance our perfect Brooke was hiding." "They're not love letters," Madison said, glancing at one. "They're thank you notes from patients. God, how self-important do you have to be to keep these?" "She probably wrote them to herself," Tyler joked, and everyone laughed. "You know what? Let's do a dramatic reading. Chat would love that." Mum cleared her throat and adopted a mocking voice. "Dear Nurse Brooke, thank you for holding my hand when I was scared. You made me feel brave." She rolled her eyes. "Can you imagine keeping this stuff like she's some kind of hero?" The stranger with the blonde hair had moved on to another box. "Guys, jackpot. I found her diary. My teenage diary. The one where I'd poured out my heart about my first boyfriend, about feeling ugly, about wondering if I'd ever be good enough. The one where I wrote about Dad's death, about how empty the world felt without him, about how I promised him I'd become a nurse and help people the way the nurses had tried to help him." Tyler's eyes lit up. "Chat is going crazy. They want us to read it. Should we?" The vote appeared on screen. 90% said yes. Mum opened it to a random page and began reading in that same cruel, mocking tone. "Dear Diary, today, Kevin asked me to prom. I can't believe someone like him would notice someone like me. Maybe I'm not as ugly as I think." She burst out laughing. "Kevin Martinez. Didn't he end up marrying that cheerleader?" "He did," Madison confirmed. "And got fat. They both did. I saw them at Target last month with like 4 kids." Another stranger, a guy wearing designer clothes that probably cost more than I made in a month, picked up my nursing school diploma from the wall. "Should we keep this? Might be worth something." "Are you kidding?" Tyler said. "Who'd want a diploma from some basic nursing school? It's not even a real medical degree." She acts like she's a doctor or something. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and started recording. Some part of my brain, the part trained to stay calm in emergencies, took over. Document everything. Evidence. Proof. Mum had moved on to a photo album. My heart shattered as I watched her flip through pictures of Dad and me. Pictures from my first day of school, from Christmas mornings, from lazy Sunday afternoons in the backyard. She paused at one where Dad was teaching me to ride a bike, his hands steady on the seat, my face bright with trust and joy. She always was his favourite, Mum said. And for the first time there was something bitter in her voice that went beyond mockery. Daddy's perfect little girl who could do no wrong. Well, where is she now when we need her? Probably taking selfies with some dying kids for Instagram, Tyler said. You know she only does that charity work to look good, right? No one's that selfless without an agenda. Madison found my box of medals and certificates from nursing school, academic achievement awards, recognition for volunteer work, a letter of recommendation from the dean. She dumped them all into the trash bag without even looking at them properly. The room's almost clear, one of the strangers said. What about that jewelry box? My grandmother's jewelry box. It held her wedding ring, a pair of pearl earrings from her mother, and a small gold cross she wore every day until she died. I'd been saving them to wear at my own wedding someday, to carry a piece of the women who came before me. Mum opened it and examined the contents. This might actually be worth something. Tyler, can you get a close-up? As Tyler moved in with his camera, Mum held up each piece, discussing its potential value like an appraiser. The wedding ring was dated but could be melted down. The pearls were probably fake, knowing my mother. The cross was too plain to be worth much. I watched them sort through 29 years of my life, determining value based on resale potential and entertainment value for strangers on the internet. They found my collection of postcards from places I'd always dreamed of visiting. Trash. My high school varsity letter for track. Trash. The ceramic handprint I'd made in kindergarten for Mother's Day with "I love you, Mommy" painted in crooked letters. Trash. Wait, Tyler said suddenly, his face lighting up. I just got a donation. Someone sent $50 and wants us to burn something of hers on camera. They all looked at each other, excited by this new level of cruelty. The diary, Madison suggested. No, save that for content, Tyler said. We can do dramatic readings for weeks. What about those nursing certificates? She's so proud of them. Mum nodded. Perfect. She acts like she's saving the world. Let's show her what we think of her achievements. I couldn't watch them burn my accomplishments. I backed away from the door, my phone still recording, capturing their laughter as they planned the destruction. My legs carried me down the stairs on autopilot. I grabbed my bags, the gifts I'd bought them still inside, and left the house I'd once called home. The rental car smelled like artificial pine freshener and someone else's coffee. I sat in the parking lot of a 24-hour grocery store engine, running for heat, watching my breath fog up the windshield. My phone felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my hand. The recording was 43 minutes long. 43 minutes of my family methodically destroying everything I'd left behind while entertaining strangers for money and attention. Every instinct screamed at me to go back, to burst through that door and demand answers. How could they do this? After everything I'd sacrificed, after every dollar sent, every holiday missed, every night, I went hungry so they could eat well. The anger burned so hot I thought it might consume me from the inside out. But something else, something learned from years of handling medical emergencies, took over. In crisis situations, the first response determines everything. React emotionally and you lose control. Stay calm, assess and plan, and you maintain power. I forced myself to breathe the way I taught panicking patients. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. I called Amy. She answered on the second ring, despite it being past midnight in Boston, where she was visiting her parents for the holidays. Brooke? Oh my God, I thought you were still in Haiti. Are you okay? I need your help, I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. Your legal help. Amy was a contract lawyer, not family law, but she'd know where to start. I sent her the video and waited while she watched. I could hear her gasps through the phone, followed by creative cursing that would have made our nursing school professors blush. Brooke, this is beyond cruel. I don't even have words. What do you need me to do? First, I need to know my options. But Amy, I don't want to react. I want to respond. There's a difference. While she started making calls to colleagues, I did my own research. Tyler's social media accounts were public. His Instagram showed the transformation of our house over the past year. Professional lighting setups, New furniture, tech equipment that cost thousands. His YouTube channel had over 100,000 subscribers. The videos went back 18 months, and the more recent ones all featured our house, our things, our life turned into content. I found the live stream from tonight. It was still going. They'd moved to the basement, going through boxes of Christmas decorations, mocking the ornaments I'd made as a child. The viewer count had climbed to 70,000. The donation ticker showed they'd made over $800 just tonight from virtual gifts and tips. Comments flooded in faster than I could read, but I screenshotted everything. Then I went deeper. Tyler had a Patreon where subscribers paid monthly for exclusive content. The tiers ranged from $5 to $50. He had over 3,000 paying members. Quick math told me he was making at least $15,000 a month, possibly more. Yet Mum had called me crying about the electric bill just last month. Madison's social media told another story. Shopping hauls from Nordstrom and Sephora. Trips to Miami and Las Vegas. Eating at restaurants I couldn't afford. Her car, which she'd told me broke down requiring $2,000 in repairs, was featured in a post about her new wrap job that changed its colour from blue to pink. The caption thanked my amazing brother Tyler for paying for it. Mum's Facebook was more subtle but equally telling. Posts about being a struggling single mother. Fundraisers for house repairs that I'd already paid for. Photos from a cruise to Mexico 3 months ago with the caption, "Sometimes you have to treat yourself even when times are tough." The cruise I'd unknowingly funded when she said she needed emergency dental surgery. My banking app revealed the extent of their betrayal. Small charges I hadn't noticed while focused on saving lives. Netflix Premium upgraded without my knowledge. Subscriptions to services I'd never heard of. Apple Pay transactions at stores in Denver while I was thousands of miles away. They'd been using my card information for over a year. The total was staggering. Including the money I'd sent willingly, they'd taken over $65,000. Amy called back. "Brooke, I've talked to a family law attorney and a criminal lawyer. You have options. First, the credit card fraud is a felony. The unauthorized use, the identity theft, you could press charges. Second, there might be civil options for recovering the money. But Brooke, there's something else you need to know about your father's estate." "What about it?" "Did you ever see the actual will?" Mum handled everything. She said it was straightforward. She got the house and his life insurance. Some money was set aside for Tyler and Madison's education. "You need to request a copy from the probate court immediately. Tonight if possible." Something doesn't add up. In most states, if there are adult children, they're entitled to information about the estate distribution. I found a 24-hour Kinko's and used their computer to access the court records. What I found made me pull over twice on the way back to my hotel to throw up. The house wasn't Mom's. It was in a trust with me, named as the executor when I turned 30. Mum had right of residence, only not ownership. She couldn't sell it, couldn't borrow against it, couldn't even modify it without trustee approval. My 30th birthday was in 2 months. The life insurance had been split 3 ways, not given entirely to Mum. My portion, $70,000, had been put in a trust I could access at 25. 4 years ago. Mum had been listed as the temporary trustee and had never told me. The statements would have gone to the house easy enough to hide. Tyler and Madison had each received $50,000 for education, held in 5 and 29 plans that could only be used for qualified expenses. I found the records. Both accounts had been drained through suspicious transactions to online educational institutions that looked like fronts. My father hadn't forgotten me. He'd tried to protect me, to provide for me, and the person he'd trusted to execute his wishes had stolen it all. I sat in that parking lot until the sun came up, planning my response. No emotional outbursts, no angry confrontations, just consequences delivered as coldly and professionally as I'd learned to deliver bad news to patients' families. First, I called the bank and reported the fraudulent charges. The representative was horrified when I explained the situation and immediately froze the accounts and cards. They started the investigation process and told me I'd likely recover most of the recent charges. Second, I called Mr. Peterson, my father's attorney who'd handled the will. He was retired but agreed to meet me when I explained the situation. His office records confirmed what I'd found online. He was appalled that Mum had never informed me about the trusts. Third, I made an appointment with a social media consultant. If Tyler wanted to live by internet fame, he could die by it too. Fourth, I called Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister. She needed to know the truth before this went public. The conversation was painful but necessary. "Brooke, your mother told us you'd abandoned the family, that you never sent money, never called. We thought you'd become selfish after getting your education. I have receipts for every transfer, Aunt Pat. Every single one. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. We all are. The whole family believed her. By noon, I'd set everything in motion. I'd known surgeries that required less precision than what I was planning. Each cut had to be perfect, each move calculated for maximum effect. They wanted to profit from cruelty. They were about to learn that actions had consequences. I returned to the house one more time to retrieve what they hadn't destroyed. Most of my things were in garbage bags by the curb. I found Mr. Button stained with coffee someone had poured on him. My father's letters to me torn but salvageable. A few photos that had fallen behind the dresser they hadn't moved. Inside, I could hear them laughing over breakfast, probably planning their next content creation. They had no idea that in less than 48 hours, their carefully constructed world would collapse. I felt no satisfaction in that knowledge, only a cold determination to see justice done. The gifts I'd bought them went to a women's shelter still in their bags with tags on. Someone who deserved them would have a better Christmas because of my family's cruelty. 3 days after discovering my family's betrayal, I sat in my hotel room watching the timer count down on my laptop screen. In exactly 1 minute, my response would go live across every social media platform simultaneously. I'd titled it simply, "The Truth About Family." The video opened with me speaking directly to the camera, no filters, no dramatic music, just truth. My name is Brooke Sanders. 3 days ago, I came home from serving with Doctors Without Borders to surprise my family for Christmas. What I found instead was them live streaming the destruction of my belongings to 70,000 strangers while mocking my life choices. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but because their actions have consequences they need to face. Then came the footage. 43 minutes condensed to 15 of the worst moments. My mother reading my diary, Tyler calling me a loser, Madison throwing away my father's letters, the strangers treating my memories like garbage, the burning of my nursing certificates as they laughed and collected donations. But I didn't stop there. I overlaid the financial records. Every transfer I'd made for 3 years, totaling $48,000 in direct support. The screenshots of Mom claiming poverty while posting from her Mexican cruise. Tyler bragging about his income while she called me crying about the mortgage. Madison's shopping sprees on my credit card. For 3 years, I've sent home half my salary while working in disaster zones. I've treated cholera patients in Bangladesh, earthquake survivors in Haiti, and victims of conflict in Syria. I did this work believing my family needed my support to survive. The truth is, they were thriving while painting me as the villain who abandoned them. The video included recordings of my calls home, begging them to visit, offering to pay for everything, being told they were too busy or too broke. I showed the emails where I shared stories from my work all left unread based on the read receipts. The birthday and holiday messages that went unanswered. I don't share this for pity or revenge. I share it because too many people experience this kind of betrayal in silence, believing they're alone. You're not alone. Family isn't about blood. It's about love, respect, and mutual support. When those things are absent, you have the right to walk away. I ended with screenshots of the legal documents, the trust fraud, the credit card theft, the education funds meant for my siblings that were stolen. I've chosen to handle this legally rather than personally. The house they're living in is held in trust, and I become the executor in 2 months. They've been given notice to vacate. The credit card fraud has been reported. The misappropriated education funds are under investigation. I'm not doing this out of anger, but out of necessity. Actions have consequences. The video went live at noon Denver time when social media engagement peaked. Within an hour, it had 1 million views. Within 6 hours, 5 million. The internet's response was swift and brutal. Tyler's live stream from that evening became infamous. He started confident, claiming I was lying, that I was jealous of his success. But as more people flooded his chat with screenshots from my video, his facade cracked. Brands started pulling sponsorships in real time. His Patreon subscribers dropped from 3,000 to 300 in 2 hours. Someone found the cruise photos and plastered them across Twitter with the caption, "Struggling single mother living her best life on her daughter's dime." Madison's college contacted her about the credit card fraud after someone sent them the evidence. Her sorority sisters distanced themselves publicly. The boutique where she'd bragged about working part-time fired her after customers complained. Mum tried damage control on Facebook, claiming creative editing and misunderstandings, but Aunt Patricia had already shared my video with the extended family. Relatives who'd believed Mum's lies for years started sharing their own stories of being asked for money while she lived lavishly. Her employer, a high-end retail store, put her on administrative leave pending investigation after customers threatened boycotts. The strangers who'd participated in destroying my things were identified within hours. The internet has a long memory and little forgiveness for cruelty. 2 lost their jobs. 1 had her college admission reconsidered. They all posted apologies claiming they didn't know the full story that Tyler had told them. I'd abandoned the family. Local news picked up the story by day 2. Denver nurse's homecoming nightmare goes viral, became the most read story on their website. National outlets followed. The narrative was irresistible, hard-working healthcare hero, betrayed by ungrateful family. Tyler tried to do damage control interviews, but every appearance made things worse. His attempts to paint me as dramatic and vindictive fell flat against the evidence. By the end of the week, the house of cards had completely collapsed. Tyler's influencer career was over. No brand would touch him. His remaining followers were hate watchers documenting his downfall. Madison was facing academic suspension and potential criminal charges. Mum had lost her job and was fielding calls from debt collectors for the loans she'd secretly taken out against the house she didn't own. I watched it all from my hotel room feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just emptiness. Amy flew in from Boston to handle the legal meetings. Mr. Peterson agreed to help pro bono, appalled at how my father's wishes had been violated. The meeting with the district attorney was surreal. They wanted to pursue charges for the credit card fraud and trust violations. The evidence was overwhelming. I had to make a choice, send my family to prison or offer them a deal. "What do you want, Brooke?" the DA asked. "This is your call." What I wanted was to rewind time, to have a family that loved me for more than what I could provide, to have a mother who was proud of my achievements instead of mocking them, to have siblings who saw me as a person instead of a bank account. But those things were fantasies now. I want them out of the house. I want restitution for what they stole, and I want no contact orders. Beyond that, I don't need to see them in prison. Having to face the consequences of their actions publicly is punishment enough. The DA nodded. We can make that happen. A week later, I stood outside my childhood home with Amy, Mr. Peterson, and a moving crew. Mom, Tyler, and Madison had been given 72 hours to pack and leave. Neighbours watched from their windows as my family carried boxes to a rented truck. Tyler kept his head down, no longer the confident influencer. Madison cried continuously. Mom aged 10 years in 10 days. She approached me as they prepared to leave, and for a moment I saw something in her eyes that might have been genuine regret. "Brooke, please. We're family. You can't do this." "You did this," I replied, my voice steady. "You chose cruelty over love. You chose money over relationship. You chose to mock and destroy instead of celebrate and preserve. These are your consequences, not my choices. Where are we supposed to go? Aunt Patricia offered you her basement. You have options, you just don't have me anymore." Tyler tried one last manipulation. "You've ruined my life. My career is over because of you. Your career ended when you decided to monetize cruelty. I just made sure people saw who you really are." Madison said nothing. She'd already started community service as part of her plea deal. The judge had been particularly unsympathetic to someone who'd stolen education funds while pretending to be a struggling student. After they left, I walked through the empty house. It felt like a mausoleum full of ghost memories. In what had been my room, I found one thing they'd missed, a photo of Dad and me at my nursing school graduation. He'd been so proud, telling everyone who'd listened that his daughter was going to save lives. "I'm sorry, Dad," I whispered to the photo. "I'm sorry they turned out this way. I'm sorry I couldn't save this family. But maybe that had never been my job. Maybe some things were too broken to fix, too poisoned to heal. Maybe the kindest thing was to walk away and let them face the natural consequences of their choices." The decision about the house came easier than expected. Standing in the living room where my father had read me bedtime stories, where we decorated Christmas trees and celebrated birthdays, I felt his presence. Not ghostly or supernatural, just the memory of his values, his kindness, his belief in helping others. "What would Dad do?" I asked Amy as we reviewed offers from potential buyers. "He'd find a way to make something good come from something painful," she said, and she was right. That's how the house became the Harrison House, named after my father, Harrison Sanders. Instead of selling it for profit, I partnered with a veterans organisation that helped homeless veterans transition back to civilian life. The house could shelter 6 veterans at a time, providing them a stable address, case management, and community support. The dedication ceremony was small. Just a few representatives from the veterans organisation, Amy, Mr. Peterson, and surprisingly Aunt Patricia with several other relatives. They'd driven in from Nebraska to support me, and apologize again for believing the lies they'd been told. Your father would be so proud, Aunt Patricia said, squeezing my hand as we watched the first residents move in. He always said you had the biggest heart in the family. The irony wasn't lost on me. The family that had mocked my nursing certificates now watched as I used my inheritance to help strangers. The money they'd thought should be theirs was funding scholarships for nursing students from low-income families. The Harrison Sanders Memorial Scholarship would send 3 students to nursing school every year. I returned to work, but not overseas this time. The foundation run by my father's former business partners had offered me a position coordinating medical missions from their Denver office. It meant regular hours, stable income, and the ability to rebuild my life in the city where everything had fallen apart. The first few months were challenging. The story had gone viral enough that people recognized me at the grocery store, at the gym, at coffee shops. Some offered sympathy, others wanted to share their own family horror stories. I learnt to smile, nod, and redirect conversations. I wasn't interested in becoming the poster child for family betrayal. Tyler had moved to Texas, staying with a friend from his influencer days. His attempts to rebuild his online presence failed spectacularly. Every video was flooded with comments about what he'd done to me. He tried rebranding several times, fitness influencer day, trader, motivational speaker. Nothing stuck. The internet has a long memory. Madison had managed to transfer to a different community college, but the story followed her. She worked at a call center, paying restitution from each paycheck. $500 a month for the next 10 years. She'd tried to contact me through Aunt Patricia, sending a letter of apology. I read it once and filed it away. Maybe someday I'd be ready to forgive, but that day wasn't close. Mum had the hardest fall. The extended family had cut her off completely after learning the truth. She worked minimum wage at a warehouse living in Aunt Patricia's basement. Patricia reported that she spent most evenings crying, claiming she didn't understand how things had gone so wrong. The victim narrative was hard to break even when faced with consequences. I found my healing in unexpected places. A support group for people who'd experienced family financial abuse became a weekly anchor. Hearing other stories, some worse than mine, helped contextualize my experience. I wasn't alone. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't wrong for choosing my own well-being over toxic relationships. Therapy helped unpack the guilt. Dr. Martinez, a specialist in family trauma, helped me understand that my impulse to help, to save, to sacrifice had been weaponized against me. Your empathy is a gift, Brooke, she said during one session. But gifts can be exploited by those who see kindness as weakness. Dating felt impossible at first. How do you explain to someone that your family live-streamed, destroying your belongings for entertainment? That your mother stole your inheritance? That your siblings saw you as nothing more than a bank account? But eventually, I met James at a foundation fundraiser. He was a pediatric surgeon who'd lost his own father young and understood complicated family dynamics. My brother sold our dad's watch collection while he was in hospice, he told me on our 3rd date. Claimed Dad wanted him to have the money for a business venture. The business was a gambling debt. He didn't pity me or try to fix me. He just understood that family could be both the source of our deepest wounds and the reason we learnt to build better relationships with chosen family. 6 months after everything happened, I received a call from an unexpected source. Kevin Martinez, my high school boyfriend, whose name my mother had mocked while reading my diary. He'd seen the video and wanted to reach out. Brooke, I'm so sorry for what you went through. I wanted you to know that those diary entries, I kept mine too. You weren't pathetic or desperate. You were kind and genuine, and those are rare qualities. We met for coffee. He was married with kids, happy in his life, nothing like the mockery my family had made of him. He showed me a photo from prom that he still kept in his wallet. First love matters, he said. It teaches us we're capable of feeling deeply. Don't let their cruelty take that away from you. The support group grew into something bigger. We started a non-profit focused on educating people about family financial abuse. The statistics were staggering. Elder abuse got attention, but abuse of adult children by their parents was barely acknowledged. We created resources, connected people with legal aid, and provided a community for those who'd been taught that family meant accepting exploitation. A year after the live stream, I was invited to speak at a nursing conference about maintaining professional boundaries while experiencing personal crisis. The room was packed. Healthcare workers, it turned out, were particularly vulnerable to family financial abuse because of our caregiving nature and stable incomes. We're trained to help, to heal, to put others first, I told the audience. But there's a difference between helping and enabling, between supporting and being drained, between loving your family and letting them destroy you. The standing ovation was overwhelming. Afterwards, dozens of people shared their own stories. Parents who'd remortgaged houses their kids had bought them, siblings who'd stolen identities, children who'd drained retirement accounts. Each story reinforced that I'd made the right choice by going public. The Washington Post did a follow-up story on the anniversary of the original incident. They interviewed experts about family financial abuse, the role of social media in enabling cruelty, and the long-term effects of public shaming. Tyler declined to be interviewed. Madison provided a written statement taking responsibility. Mum claimed through her lawyer that she'd been misunderstood, but the most meaningful response came from the veterans living in what had been my childhood home. They sent a video message thanking me for the stability the house provided. One of them, Marcus, had been on the streets for 3 years before moving in. "This house saved my life," he said simply. "Whatever happened before, something beautiful came from it." That video meant more than any apology could have. It transformed the house from a site of betrayal to a place of redemption. Dad would have loved that. The second Christmas after everything happened, I found myself in an unexpected place, content. Not happy exactly, the wounds were still too fresh for that, but content with who I'd become through the ordeal. I was hosting dinner for my chosen family, Amy, who'd flown in from Boston with her husband James, who was now more than just a boyfriend, 3 nurses from my support group, and Mr. Peterson, who'd become a grandfather figure. As I prepared dinner in my new apartment, a modest place that felt more like home than the house ever had, I thought about forgiveness. Not the kind that pretends nothing happened or welcomes toxicity back, but the kind that releases you from carrying anger like a weight. Dr. Martinez had introduced me to the concept of radical acceptance. You can't change what they did, Brooke. You can only control how you let it shape you moving forward. I'd chosen to let it make me wiser, not harder. More discerning, not closed off. I still sent money to causes I believed in, but now I verified everything. I still helped people, but with boundaries. I still believed in family, just not the one I was born into. The scholarship recipients sent updates about their progress. One, Maria, was working in an ICU in an underserved community. Another, Derek, had joined Doctors Without Borders, following the path I'd once walked. The third, Jennifer, was specializing in pediatric oncology. Each of them was living proof that good could come from pain. Tyler had disappeared from social media entirely. The last anyone heard, he was working construction, having abandoned his influencer dreams. Madison had sent another letter through Aunt Patricia, this time with a check for an extra $100 beyond her court-ordered restitution. The memo line said simply, "I'm sorry, I deposited it into the scholarship fund." Mum was the ghost that haunted the edges of my new life. Patricia reported that she'd started therapy, finally acknowledging some responsibility for what happened. She'd asked about me, wanted to know if I was okay, if I was happy. Patricia told her I was thriving, nothing more. She wants to apologize. Patricia told me during a phone call, "I think she means it this time." "Maybe someday," I replied. "But not yet. Maybe not ever. And that has to be okay." The internet, meanwhile, had moved on to new scandals, new betrayals, new viral moments of human cruelty. Occasionally someone would recognize me and want to rehash everything, but most people had forgotten. I was grateful for that obscurity. James proposed on the 3rd anniversary of the live stream. It wasn't planned that way. He didn't even know the date's significance until I told him later. But there was something poetic about choosing to build a new family on the anniversary of losing the old one. "I love your strength," he said as he knelt in my apartment, the same one where I'd rebuilt my life. "But I love your softness more. The fact that after everything you still choose kindness." The wedding was small, intimate, filled with people who'd proven their love through actions, not words. Amy was my maid of honor. Mr. Peterson walked me down the aisle. The veterans from Harrison House attended in their dress uniforms. Even Kevin Martinez and his wife came completing a circle that my family had tried to break with mockery. My vows included a line that made everyone cry. "You've shown me that family isn't about obligation or blood. It's about choosing each other again and again, especially when it's hard." Tyler sent a wedding gift through Amazon, no note, just an expensive blender from my registry. I donated it to the women's shelter. Madison sent a card with a long apology and a photo of us as children before everything went wrong. I kept the photo tucked away in a drawer. Mum sent nothing, which was perhaps the most honest communication we'd had in years. The foundation work expanded. We started partnering with international organizations to bring medical care to places I'd once served. Every presentation included my story, how personal pain had transformed into purpose. Young healthcare workers reached out sharing their own struggles with family exploitation, finding strength in knowing they weren't alone. 5 years after that December night, I received a call that changed everything again. Mum had suffered a heart attack. She was stable but facing a long recovery. Aunt Patricia was struggling to care for her while working full-time. I sat with that information for 3 days, consulting my therapist, talking to James, processing what I felt versus what I thought I should feel. In the end, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I paid for a home health aide. Not because I forgave her, not because family obligates us to accept abuse, but because I refused to let her cruelty change who I was at my core. The aide would report to Patricia, not me. I wouldn't visit, wouldn't call, wouldn't reopen that door, but I could ensure she received care without sacrificing my peace. Why? Patricia asked when I told her. Because Dad would want me to be better than what they tried to make me become, I said. This isn't forgiveness, it's freedom. I'm choosing to act from my values, not from my hurt. The aide reported that Mum cried when she learnt who was paying for the care. She tried to send messages through the aide, but I'd been clear no contact. The boundary was firm, even in compassion. Tyler reached out once more through LinkedIn of all places. He was married, had a baby on the way, and wanted to share that he'd been sober for 2 years. The gambling addiction that had fueled his desperate need for income had nearly destroyed him after his influencer career ended. He thanked me for not pressing criminal charges, acknowledged it had saved him from a darker path. I didn't respond, but I didn't block him either. Growth was possible for everyone, even those who'd hurt us most. That didn't mean we had to witness it or participate in it. Madison graduated with her associate degree and became an addiction counselor. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She specialized in financial exploitation within families, using her own story as a cautionary tale. She sent me her graduation photo through Patricia with a note, "I'm trying to become someone you could be proud of." I tucked that photo next to the childhood one. Maybe someday I'd reach out. Maybe not. Healing doesn't follow a schedule or require reconciliation. Today marks 10 years since I stood in that empty bedroom watching my family mock my existence for entertainment. I'm 39 now, with 2 children of my own, both adopted from the foster system. They know my story in age-appropriate ways, understanding that families can hurt us and that walking away is sometimes the bravest choice. My son Harrison, named after my father, is 7 and wants to be a doctor. My daughter Grace is 5 and insists she'll be a veterinarian who also fights fires on weekends. James and I are raising them with the values my father taught me before his death. Kindness is strength, helping others is a privilege, and family is defined by love, not blood. The house continues to shelter veterans. We've expanded to 3 houses now, all funded by the foundation. The scholarship has sent 37 students to nursing school. Most stay in touch, sending updates about the lives they've saved, the families they've built, the good they've put into the world. Tyler disappeared completely after his LinkedIn message. Some say he moved to Canada. Others claim he's teaching English abroad. I hope he's found peace, even if it's far from here. Madison still works as a counsellor, married a fellow counsellor, and by all accounts is living a quiet, honest life. She sends a card every Christmas through Patricia. I've never opened one, but I've never thrown them away either. Mum passed away 2 years ago. Another heart attack, this one fatal. Patricia called to tell me offering to handle arrangements if I didn't want to be involved. I paid for the funeral but didn't attend. Instead, I spent that day at the veterans' house painting rooms with the current residents, honouring my father's memory by continuing his legacy of helping others. She left me a letter in her will. Mr. Peterson delivered it personally, offering to stay while I read it, or to leave it unopened forever. I chose to read it alone in the garden James and I had built in our backyard. The letter was long, rambling in places, clear in others. She admitted to jealousy, to feeling abandoned, when I chose to help strangers instead of staying home. She admitted to the theft, the lies, the cruelty. She said Tyler had convinced her the live stream would be funny, that I'd never know that the money would help them survive. She knew it was wrong, but couldn't stop the momentum once it started. The last paragraph read, I destroyed our family because I couldn't stand that you became what I should have been. Strong, independent, successful. Your father saw it in you from the beginning. I saw it too, and it made me feel small. That's my burden to carry into whatever comes next. Your freedom from me is my only gift to you now. I burned the letter in our fire pit, watching the words turn to ash and drift away. It didn't bring closure or peace or any of the things people say it should. It just was like everything else that had happened. A fact to acknowledge and move past. The viral video of my story has been viewed over 100 million times across all platforms. It spawned documentaries, podcast episodes, and countless reaction videos. Universities use it in sociology and psychology courses to discuss family dynamics, financial abuse, and the impact of social media on human behavior. I've turned down every request for interviews, book deals, and movie rights. The story has served its purpose. I don't need to relive it for entertainment. Sometimes when I'm tucking my children into bed, I think about the teddy bear my father won for me at that state fair. Mr. Buttons, who ended up coffee-stained in a garbage bag. I'd cleaned him as best I could, and he now sits on a shelf in Grace's room. She doesn't know his full story, just that Grandpa Harrison won him for Mommy a long time ago. Was Grandpa Harrison nice? She asked once. The nicest, I told her. He believed in helping people and being kind even when it's hard. Is that why you help people? That's exactly why. The truth is, I help people because it's who I am at my core, something my family tried to mock out of existence but couldn't destroy. Every veteran housed, every student educated, every patient treated through our foundation programs is proof that cruelty doesn't have to create more cruelty. Pain can become purpose if you let it. I still work at the foundation now as Director of Operations. We've expanded internationally, partnering with organizations I once worked with in the field. Last month we opened a clinic in Haiti in the same neighborhood where I'd decided to come home that December 10 years ago. The circle feels complete. James and I built our family intentionally. Sunday dinners with chosen aunts and uncles who've earned those titles through loyalty and love. Holidays with people who celebrate our victories and support us through challenges. Birthday parties where no one would dream of mocking a child's artwork or dismissing their dreams. When Harrison made me a Mother's Day card last year with crooked handwriting that said, "I love you, Mummy," I hung it on the refrigerator and thought about that ceramic handprint I'd made in kindergarten, the one my mother had thrown in the trash while strangers cheered. The cycle didn't have to repeat. It wouldn't repeat. People sometimes ask if I regret going public, if I wish I'd handled it privately. The answer is always no. Shame thrives in silence. Abuse continues in darkness. By bringing it into the light, I not only freed myself, but gave others permission to free themselves too. The emails I still receive from people who found strength in my story, who recognized their own exploitation and chose to walk away, make every moment of pain worthwhile. There's a photo on my desk at work. It's from the dedication ceremony of the 3rd Veterans House. I'm standing between 2 residents, both beaming, holding a sign that says, Harrison Sanders Memorial House Where Heroes Heal. In the background, slightly out of focus, is a rainbow. James, who took the photo, swears he didn't notice it until later. I choose to believe it was my father letting me know he's proud of who I became, not in spite of what happened, but because of how I chose to respond. The funny thing about consequences is that they're often teachers disguised as punishment. My family learned that actions have repercussions, that cruelty has a cost, that you can't destroy someone for entertainment without destroying yourself in the process. But I learned something too, that you can choose your response to betrayal, that you can build beauty from brokenness, that family isn't about who shares your blood, but who shares your values. 10 years ago, I stood silent in that hallway, choosing strategy over emotion, consequences over confrontation. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, harder than treating dying children, harder than working in war zones, harder than watching my father take his last breath. But it was also the moment I claimed my power, decided my worth, and chose my path. My silence that night spoke louder than any scream could have. Their laughter turned to tears. Their mockery became their shame. Their entertainment became their ending. And from the ashes of that family, I built a better one, a kinder one that my children will never have to escape. That's the ultimate consequence, isn't it? They lost me. They lost the daughter and sister who would have moved mountains for them, who did move mountains for them until they proved themselves unworthy of that devotion. They gained a few $1,000s and some temporary internet fame. I gained freedom, purpose, and a life built on authentic love. I wouldn't change a thing. The most powerful response to cruelty isn't revenge. It's living well, helping others, and refusing to let someone else's darkness dim your light. They thought they were throwing away my worthless belongings that night. Instead, they threw away their last chance at having me in their lives. That's a consequence they'll live with forever, long after the internet has forgotten their names, long after the money has run out, long after the laughter has died. And me, I'll keep building, keep helping, keep choosing kindness, even when it's hard. Not because they deserve it, but because I deserve to live as the person my father raised me to be. That's my victory. That's my peace. That's my perfectly silent response to their very public cruelty. Some stories end with reconciliation, with families reunited and wounds healed. This isn't one of those stories. This is a story about choosing yourself, about walking away from toxicity, about building something beautiful from the rubble of betrayal. It's about understanding that forgiveness doesn't require reconnection, that healing doesn't demand reconciliation, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for everyone involved is to simply let go. If you're watching this and recognizing your own story in mine, know this: you deserve better. You deserve family who celebrates your success instead of mocking it. You deserve love that doesn't come with a price tag. You deserve respect that doesn't require payment. And if your blood family can't provide those things, you have every right to build a chosen family who can. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment about what family means to you or how you've overcome your own betrayal. Like this video if you believe in the power of chosen family, and subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over toxicity. Most importantly, remember that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to respond. May you find the courage to leave what hurts you, the strength to build what heals you, and the wisdom to know that family is a privilege to be earned, not a right to be assumed. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.